Hello and welcome. It's 10 a.m. on Thursday, the 11th of September. You're tuned in to our mid-morning newscast here on Arirang TV. I'm Mark Broome. Let's take a look at what's making the headlines. The Korean government is expected to announce a substantial increase in cigarette prices today as it looks to bring down the nation's stubbornly high smoking rate. The price of a pack could rise by up to 80%. High-level officials from Korea, China and Japan meet in Seoul today for their first such talks in almost 1 year on ways to mend relations eroded by territorial and historical differences. Plus, US President Barack Obama will set out Washington's plans to destroy Islamic State insurgents, including military action and support for Iraq and Syria. Our top story this morning, though, the Korean government will unveil a comprehensive list of anti-smoking measures today, and this will include a hefty price hike on cigarettes. Officials want to slash the country's smoking rate, which remains very high compared to other developed countries. We'll have to wait until the Ministry of Health and Welfare's announcement in a couple of hours' time for the exact level of the price hike, but an up to $2 rise has been discussed at meetings between the government and the ruling party. Now, most cigarettes in Korea are sold for $2.40 or less, which is much cheaper than the average price of $6.40 among the members of the OECD. Critics say it's unfair to suddenly hit smokers with such hefty price hike, especially when you consider that cigarette prices haven't been raised since 2004, and then they were only raised by $0.50. The Vice Foreign Ministers of Korea, China and Japan will hold a rare trilateral meeting in Seoul later on this Thursday. Seoul's Foreign Ministry says its Deputy Minister Lee Kyung-soo, China's Vice Foreign Minister Liu Zhenmin and Japan's Deputy Foreign Minister Shinsuke Sugiyama will discuss diverse cooperative projects between the three nations, particularly those related to maritime affairs and cyber defense. The one-day talks are the first such discussions since November of last year. Now, the members are expected to touch upon arranging possible summit talks between the three nations. Korea, China and Japan agreed all the way back in 2007 to hold three-way summit talks each and every year, but last year's summit was cancelled due to soured relations over a range of territorial and historical disputes. Now, South Korea's National Security Advisor will travel to the US early next week to discuss bilateral security cooperation plans. All eyes are on how Kim Kwon-jin's meetings with his American counterpart Susan Rice and other high-ranking officials will pan out, especially with North Korea's foreign minister due in the US on a very rare visit in the coming days. Our Son Jung-in has this report.
President Park's National Security Advisor Kim Kwon-jin will embark on a 3-day trip to the U.S. on Sunday in what will be his first trip to the country since he took up his new role in June. Sources say Kim is scheduled to meet his American counterpart Susan Rice and other security-related personnel to discuss a broad range of issues, including the Korea-U.S. alliance and the current diplomatic and security situation in Northeast Asia. In particular, the talks will likely center on Pyongyang's rapidly changing diplomatic stance following its decision to send its foreign minister Lee Soo-yong to a meeting of the UN General Assembly later this month. This will mark the first visit to the U.S. by a North Korean foreign minister in 15 years. During Kim's visit, the U.S. and South Korea will likely reaffirm their bilateral cooperation in dealing with the North's nuclear program and fine-tune details in strengthening security cooperation. Also, on military issues, attention is being drawn on how the talks will pan out regarding Washington's plan to deploy an advanced missile defense system called Terminal High Altitude Area Defense in South Korea. With the recent launch of a unification preparatory committee and Seoul's proposal of high-level inter-Korean talks, Kim may also seek some advice regarding exchanges and cooperation measures during the anticipated talks. 손정인, Arirang News.
The former chair of the UN Commission of Inquiry of Human Rights in North Korea is calling on the United Nations to submit North Korea's crimes against humanity to the International Criminal Court. Speaking at the UN headquarters in Geneva on Wednesday, Michael Kirby stressed it was time the UN General Assembly and the Security Council took action to punish those responsible in North Korea for such heinous crimes. The UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in North Korea, Marzuki Darusman, also called for an international response to address the issue of Japanese nationals abducted by North Korea in the 1970s and 80s. Japan officially lists 19 nationals as abductees, but Tokyo suspects North Korea had a hand in many, many more disappearances. Now back here in South Korea, and millions of people headed back into work this morning for the first time in 5 days after the long Chuseok or Korean Thanksgiving break. While many will feel recharged after some much needed time off, others will have to endure a post-holiday hangover of stress, sickness and other physical ailments. Our Kwon-soo reports.
5 days off thanks to Chuseok and the extended holiday. But for some, that's not necessarily good news because it actually means additional work and stress. Post-holiday syndrome, a temporary physical and mental condition, affects plenty of women in Korea after the Lunar New Year and Chuseok holidays. In particular, daughters-in-law suffer from preparing large amounts of traditional ritual food. Women complain of migraines, backache, muscle pain, nausea, loss of appetite, digestive disorders, and many more ailments. Carpal tunnel syndrome, a painful nerve condition that affects the wrist, is another common complaint. According to the Insurance Review and Assessment Service, 78% of carpal tunnel syndrome patients in 2013 were women. Doctors say making the same food with the same repetitive motions should be avoided, and taking a break every now and again is recommended. Stress is another part of the syndrome. There's an unending list of chores to complete, and the misery is often compounded by nagging mothers-in-law and family members' nonchalant attitude. Psychologists say acknowledging the woman's efforts, splitting up the work, and thanking them helps a lot.
Giving gifts or a vacation to the wife would be a way to thank them, but the best solution is for the husband to tell them that they know how much stress their wife is coping with and to show them repetitively that they are sorry and thankful by words and actions.
It's not only women suffering from the holiday syndrome. Men complain of physical pain due to hours of driving at a snail pace on the highways, as well as the stress of being the mediator between their wives and mothers. Children can feel it too, from eating too much high-calorie food to not getting enough sleep. This means mutual understanding among family members is a must to enjoy the real purpose of family gatherings like Chuseok. Kwon-soo, Arirang News.
Now, a lot of that stress that people feel over the Chuseok holiday is the financial strain of long trips in the car, multiple supermarket runs for food and expensive holiday gifts. But it's exactly this kind of intense consumer spending that analysts hope can give the economy the much-needed pick-me-up it needs. Our Hwang Jie has the details.
From apples to beef, a variety of Chuseok gifts have filled the display stand here at a local department store located in the heart of the capital, Seoul. Consumers consider what to buy for their friends and families.
I'm looking around to buy presents at around the $100 level for my parents and friends. There are all sorts of products, so I'm wondering what to buy.
The nation's biggest holiday period is a high season for local retailers. Pre-sales of Chuseok gifts at major supermarkets soared by up to 70%. And the story's not that different for department stores. Numbers there shot up around 40%. While pre-sales take up a mere 10% of total sales of Chuseok gifts, local retailers are expecting some positive figures for the entire holiday period as well.
The number of consumers who are visiting our stores increasing thanks to Chuseok. Grocery sales are expected to rise into the double digits during the holiday season compared to last year.
As the Korean economy has been facing sluggish domestic demand after the Seoul ferry disaster in April, expectations are running high that the holiday period could mark the start of a pickup in the economy. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
Now staying with some economic news, and latest figures show there's reason to be cautiously optimistic about Korea's youth employment rate, which has been inching up steadily but surely over the past 11 months. According to Statistics Korea, just over 4 million Koreans between the ages of 15 and 29 were collecting some form of paycheck as of Wednesday. That's up 2.7% on year. The youth employment rate in July also stood at over 42%, and that's the highest it's been since the onset of the global financial crisis in 2008. While those numbers look encouraging, though, we must remember that this coincides with a summer break when many students take on part-time jobs. Now, young people in work are not really that satisfied with their jobs either. A survey conducted by the agency found that more than a quarter of college graduates said they were stuck in a, quote, dead-end job. Almost half said they quit their first job because of unfavorable working conditions and low pay. Right, time now for a look through the international headlines we're following on this Thursday morning. For that, we turn to our Eunice Kim, standing by at the News Centre. Good morning, Eunice.
Good morning to you, Mark.
So, US President Barack Obama is currently laying out his broader strategy against Islamic State militants, both in Syria and Iraq, in what is shaping up to be a reversal of his earlier commitment to end American involvement in the region.
Right, Mark. That statement, televised statement, ongoing as we speak right now, especially with the very public beheadings of 2 American journalists at the hands of Islamic State fighters. Washington is gaining the traction it needs in President Obama's words to take out the militants through a steady, relentless effort using air power and support for partner forces on the ground. Now, this means U.S. airstrikes would be extended to Syria from Iraq, though President Obama did make a point to say there would be no American boots fighting on the ground. On that note, earlier this morning, the White House said it would provide immediate military assistance to Iraq worth $25 million and an ask for more money to train Syrian moderate fighters will be at the doorstep of Congress. America's top diplomat, John Kerry, is in the Middle East this morning, rallying support for a broader coalition with regional partners including Jordan and Saudi Arabia. Early reports say Saudi Arabia has granted a U.S. request to host an anti-IS training program. Kerry kicked off his tour in Baghdad yesterday, or rather today local time, where he's congratulated Iraq's new Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi on his new government. Now, Ukraine's President Petro Poroshenko says it estimates about 70% of Russian troops have left the country's borders as a ceasefire between Kiev and pro-Russian separatists appears to hold. Moscow has consistently denied sending troops into Ukraine, contrary to what Western leaders believe, including NATO. Poroshenko promised more autonomy for rebel-held eastern regions with a related bill that could be introduced as early as next week, but he did reject a federalized eastern Ukraine. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin promised his country will respond to military moves by NATO with new nuclear and conventional weapons as his military successfully test-fired an intercontinental ballistic missile from a nuclear submarine. And returning to Syria, toxic chemical, most likely chlorine, was systematically and repeatedly used as a weapon in attacks on villages in northern Syria. This according to a report by the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, which concluded a fact-finding mission to Syria that included interviews with victims, eyewitnesses, and doctors. Both the regime of President Bashar al-Assad and rebels have accused the other of using chemical agents in the fighting that continues since March of 2011. Witnesses generally link the chlorine attacks to bombs dropped from helicopters, a tactic often linked to Assad's regime. Campaigning in Edinburgh, British Prime Minister David Cameron made an impassioned plea to Scots not to break away from the United Kingdom. Scotland is set to hold an independence referendum on September 18th. Cameron, at the center of the so-called No campaign, told them if the UK breaks apart, it breaks apart forever. Queen Elizabeth II, meanwhile, has kept a distance. She said she would stay neutral on the matter and not influence the outcome of the vote. The two countries have shared the same monarch since the 17th century after creating a sovereign state which includes England, Northern Ireland, Scotland, and Wales.
Get connected to Korea and the world. Join us every weekday for the latest developments out of Korea, Asia, and beyond. On air, on your mobile, and online, we lead the way every day. Arirang News.
To try and resolve the crisis in Ukraine, the European Union also offers 15 billion. Now, the launch of any Apple products always causes waves within the tech world, and the iPhone 6, iPhone 6 Plus, and Apple Watch presentation this week was absolutely no different. But what can we make of these new products? Sao Kim Jeon reports.
Apple unveiled its much-anticipated newest models in California on Tuesday. The iPhone 6 comes with a bigger screen than its predecessors at 4.7 inches, while the iPhone 6 Plus has an even larger screen of 5.5 inches. In terms of pricing, the iPhone 6 will start at just under $200 and the iPhone 6 Plus starts at around $300. Both models are scheduled to launch on September 19th, and pre-orders will begin later this week in Apple stores across the U.S. Apple also unveiled the company's first new product line since the iPad, the Apple Watch, which will be available early next year. Equipped with fitness and health apps, the Apple Watch is trying to appeal to the mainstream consumer and perhaps those with fashion in mind. It will be available with 6 interchangeable bands in stainless steel, aluminum, or 18-karat gold.
Technical products have always been defined and championed by geeks, by technophiles, people who look like Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg. This is something completely different. This is technical combined with luxury. We've never seen technical products made with fine leather, with gold. This is something new. It's a new category of product, and I think it's going to be tremendous. I think it's going to bring in a whole new type of customer.
The watch will also be compatible with Apple Pay, Apple's new mobile payment service, which will allow users to make purchases on their Apple products. Kim Jeon, Arirang News.
Now, Korean dramas and K-pop have made a huge splash on the global stage and continue to do so. Could Korean animations be next? Well, our Shin Se-min reports on one wildly popular cartoon in Korea that is being made into a smartphone game.
Already beloved by television audiences of all ages, cartoon character Larva has wiggled itself into another media realm, smartphone games.
Distinctive and at the same time funny characters like these will draw people in, eventually providing users with original entertainment.
The users may be as far as Southeast Asia and South America in countries where the animation is already popular. The creators of the game hope it's just as well received.
Diversifying and expanding into overseas markets, we are trying to reach emerging markets such as Brazil and China.
Korea dramas and Korean pop music have already proven themselves to be popular overseas. The success of Larva and other animations has some wondering whether cartoons may just be the next big thing. Shin Se-min,
Arirang News.
And a good Thursday morning to you all as we kick things off with the upcoming Incheon Asian Games as the first group of North Korean Asian Games delegation begin arriving here in Korea. Now landing at the Incheon International Airport via Koryo Airlines, 94 members of the North Korean delegation will arrive in South Korea. Now, some of the members include North Korean Olympic Committee Chief Chang Soo-myung, the football team, and the rowing team as well. Now, more North Korean delegation are expected to arrive throughout the week depending on the sport and its event schedule. Now over to the South Korean national team and to the U-23 men's football team who faced off against the UAE in their final tune-up match before the Incheon Asian Games. Now head coach Lee Kwang-jung using the 4-2-3-1 formation with Kim Shin-wook up at top as the lone striker, but it's Kim Min-hyuk who gives Korea the 1-0 lead in the first half. But a goalkeeper mistake by Kim Seung-gyu leads to UAE leading the match at 1-1 before Kim Seung-dae scores in the 75th minute, giving Korea the 2-1 lead and the win. Meanwhile, Korea will play their first Asian Games match on the 14th against Malaysia. And now shifting over to the 2014 International Shooting Sport Federation's World Championship, which is currently taking place in Grenada, Spain. There, the 34-year-old Jin Jong-ho was able to break a world record that's as old as he is. Now taking part in the 50-meter men's air pistol event, the Korean sharpshooter scores 583 points, setting a new world record and winning a gold in the event. Now for Jin, not only does he break a 34-year-old record, he also wins his first individual gold at a world championship. And now moving over to the 2014 Evian Championship, the final LPGA major of the season. Now for two Korean LPGA golfers, Park Se-ri and Park In-bi, it's their chance to earn a career Grand Slam with a win. Now with the event taking place from September 11th to the 14th at the Evian Resort Golf Club in France, Hall of Famer Park Se-ri and world number 2 Park In-bi look to storm through the 4-day event, hoping to win the season's final major and also claim a career Grand Slam. Now, if any of the two achieve that feat, they will become the 7th golfer to do so. And now over to some Wednesday night's KBO action. The Nexen Heroes continue their winning ways, beating the Hanwha Eagles 4-2 with the LG Twins crushing the Kia Tigers 12-6, as well as the Lotte Giants who cruised past the SK Wyverns 11-5. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the Samsung Lions take on the NC Dinos. And of course, going into the game, here we go over to the 4th inning. Veteran Lee-ho Jun RBI single to left gives the NC Dinos the 1-0 lead before Ji Seok-kun makes it 2-0 with a single to right, scoring Lee-ho Jun from third. But the 6th inning Lion King Lee Seung-yup deep to right field. That's number 30 on the season as he becomes the oldest to hit 30 in a single season. Now fast forward to the 9th inning, wild pitch with the bases loaded here ties the game at 2 apiece. Few pitches later, Park Chan-do, that's a 2-run single to left center, his first career hit and a big one at that, as he helps the Samsung Lions rally back to win this game 4-2. And now finishing things off with some midweek K-League Classic action, the Pohang Steelers sneak one past the Jeonnam Dragons 1-0 with FC Seoul beating Seongnam FC 2-1. Busan and Jeonbuk draw 1-1 and Gyeongnam FC and Incheon United drew as well 0-0 and Jeju United defeated Sangju 2-1. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the Suwon Samsung Blue Wings take on the Ulsan Hyundai Tigers. Now, a rather slow start to the match with very little opportunities in the first 25 minutes, but in the 28th minute, the first goal, an own goal by Ulsan's Kim Keung-hwan, as Suwon takes a 1-0 lead. The 36 minutes, that's Seo Jung-jin there, that makes it 2-0 Suwon. Now, Ulsan starts fighting away the second half, but Suwon's defense does the rest as they hang on to win this one 2-0, your final score. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning. Well, we really couldn't ask for the better weather conditions over Chuseok holiday, and it seems like we'll continue to have that delightful weather conditions today as well. And mostly sunny skies are dominating the whole peninsula, but as we head into the midday, more clouds will be moving into the nation. So with the clouds coverage, temperatures will be slightly lower than yesterday. So let's take a closer look. The afternoon high in Seoul will rise to 28, so as Gwangju, and Daegu and Busan will peak at 29 and 26 respectively. Now for other regions, it looks like down on Jeju Island will hike up to 26. Daejeon and Dokdo should see highs of 28 and 24, while Mount Keungang tops out at 16. Well, it seems like the weather outlook for next 5 days are looking pleasant as well here in the capital, but the highs will start to drop to mid-20s starting early next week, getting one step closer to mid-autumn. Well, that's all for Korea, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's going to do it for now. Have a fabulous day, and thanks as always for watching. I'm Mark Broome, and I'll be back again with Ojin Ju at noon Korea time. Until then, goodbye.